Alright, take two. Hi, Macros Inc. family. This has been a couple things that I've seen in the group where people have been asking about squat depth and a couple things like that. Like, how do I get squat depth? I'm not hitting parallel or below. So I wanted to go through a couple things really quickly, and then we can use this video to send to clients and help you guys with your squat depth. So there's a couple things that are a key thing with squat depth, and there's another video that I'm going to link below, and it's called squat foldability and proportions, and it talks more about the biomechanics of this. I don't want to get into that aspect, but I want to just show you how you can figure out basically where your squat depth is. So first and foremost, your foot positioning is going to be completely dependent on what's best for you as a person, you as a client, your hip anatomy. All those things come into play when we talk about like where your foot positioning is going to be. In fact, like right now, if you could look at me from above, you could see that my feet are even in terms of positioning left to right and side to side, and with like where my toes are pointed to. But when I'm actually squatting, I actually squat with my right foot back a little bit, just because of how my hips work and what feels best for me. When I deadlift, I actually deadlift with my right foot a little bit offset as well. I don't do those things very often anymore. But yeah, so hip anatomy is going to play a big role, and that's going to determine largely where your foot placement is going to be. So name of the game with squatting when we talk about optimal depth is that we're getting and this is for optimal depth for muscle engagement, full range of motion, like all of those things. For some people, you may not ever hit below parallel, or you might only be getting to parallel, and that's totally fine. That's going to be a limb length. That's going to be a biomechanics hip physiology, like physical hip build. All those things can play a role with that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to hit parallel or below. So what does parallel or below mean? I want to show you that. So when we talk about getting parallel or below, I want you to look at where my hip crease lands when I'm squatting and the top of my knees. So if you look as I squat down, this is my hip crease right here. This is parallel. That's sunk below parallel right now. So that's what we're talking about. So hip crease at or below parallel with your squat is considered like an optimal range of motion. There's a couple ways to determine what your squat stance is going to be to get there. So I want to show you a few things. I'm going to show you from the side and from the front for each of my stances so that you can see how these things affect the depth of my squat. So the first stance that you're going to see is a very foot narrow, feet pointed very straight stance, and you're going to see it from the side and from the front that I can hit parallel, but it changes how my back is. I have a very far forward lean. You'll see all these things kind of come into play. But if you look, I totally can hit parallel or below with my feet very, very close. And I'll show you that from the side. So I'm going to take one step. My feet are in the exact same position. But what I want you to watch is my lower back, how my pelvis tilts, and how much more forward I'm going to be leaning compared to my other stances. So as I go into this, you can see that I'm hitting that depth. I almost can't balance here because it's uncomfortable. But my hip and my lower back is actually rounded right here for me to be in this position. I can't hold that position safely, but I am hitting depth. So that's one thing. The next stance I'm going to take is my actual squat stance, which is just slightly wider than hip width. My right foot back just a little bit. And I want to show you how much more optimal this looks from the front and then again from the side. So totally hitting parallel or below right now, and I'm going to show you from the side again, where all I've done is space my feet out a little bit and shifted my one foot back because I know I've got a messed up hip. So same thing, I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to squat, and you can actually see that my lower back, my pelvis, is in a much better position. I'm not getting like this rounding in my lower back at all, and I'm actually not leaning as far forward. And then the last stance that I'm going to show you is a very wide stance. And for this, again, I can hit parallel or below with this, and I'm going to be very upright with it. So I'm going to take that stance from the side here. And so you can see that I'm hitting depth. This actually looks a lot better, but for me, I can feel like a twinge in my hip. I can feel some impingement happening, which is why I don't squat wide, right? But you can see that my back is even more upright. I'm actually hitting my hip creases right here, quite a bit below the parallel height. And like this squat looks mechanically good. It just doesn't feel good for me personally, so I don't squat like this. But you as an individual are going to experience a different, I guess, requirement for your squats or your required stance, right? So, you know, how we can do this and how we can basically like figure out what's going to work best for you is really just taking the time to like try out a bunch of different squat stances, right? So, you know, try a very narrow width squat stance. See how you squat. Take a step out. Try that squat stance. See how you do with depth. Get a mirror. I've got one right here. Get a mirror, film yourself, do any of those things so that you can video yourself, and you can watch what your squat looks like. Try it with your different feet widths or foot positioning. You might squat very wide with your feet pointed out very wide. You might squat with your feet pointing in, right? All of those things are going to make a difference in your squat depth, but it's a really easy thing to do. So, if I was you, really, really close stance. Nah, that looks funky and feels weird. All right, let's try this one. That feels good. My hips don't feel bad. My back looks good. Really wide stance. Okay, my back looks really good. My squat form looks good, but I got this kind of pinchy feeling right here. So I'm gonna try another one in between, just a little bit lower. There we go. That's even better in terms of how it feels for me personally. So those are a couple different ways that you can kind of test your squat stance, so to speak, and figure out what's going to work best for you. I'm doing this on carpet and barefoot. Try to do it on like a solid surface back there. My kind of workout area is a little bit of a mess right now, so I didn't do it there, but it is best to do these things on like a hard surface so you're not trying to have to balance while you're doing all these things. And yeah, if you need help with this, post a video in the client group, tag myself, Derek Saunders, tag Corey Robb. Sorry, Corey, I'm throwing you under the bus. Tag somebody, and we can help you sort this out. Ask your coach, all those different things. We're all here for you. But yeah, try these 3 different stances. Try a variety of foot widths, and just practice that getting below parallel with a bodyweight squat to figure out what is going to be best for you. Okay?